trying to get sponsored.
Welcome back to Pink Chair Therapy. Today we have a special guest, my husband, Jason Schweitzer. The only thing I know about today's episode is that we're talking about communication chaos. And when my dad told me that, I asked if it was okay if we did this episode with my husband, because I thought that would be fun to figure out what communication chaos is with a newly married couple.
And I love that. I love Jason here.
So we're kind of in the dark. We don't really know what's going on. So we're both very excited, Dad.
Okay. Let's see if I can create some arguments that we can have on the air. That would be great.
Okay. Awesome.
Well, so I'm thinking probably the place to start is with a handful of principles that are applicable to pretty much anything we talk about relative to communication. All right. So part of what we'll talk about is kind of specific to marital communication, but part of it is going to be just interaction between people, principles that are important to know. Okay. And the principles, for the most part, don't originate with me, and I'll kind of cue into here's where this comes from, etc. Okay. So to start out with, when we're going to use the word communication, I'm going to be referring to two people, face to face, voice to voice, looking and talking to each other. So we're not talking about texting. We're not talking about Zooming. We're talking about presence. So that's the key that we're talking about originally. Okay.
In-person verbal
right.
communication.
In person,
okay.
Right. Because when we're doing that, there are three discernible levels that we are always communicating on in that setting. And there have been plenty of research studies on what those levels are, how they work, how they impact. Okay? So I was in college and grad school in the late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah.
And at that point, there was a ton of this research coming out because it was a thing. It was a fad, you know. And so this is essentially the result of that, all right? Studies vary. I'm going to talk about statistics. They vary a little bit. They vary by researcher, but they are minuscule. They're insignificant, all right? So one level of interaction that's happening right now as I'm talking to you is what we call verbal content. Now, what's being measured in each of these studies is the perceived message. So right now, what those studies measure is what you're taking in this moment, okay? Verbal content specifically are the words that are coming out of my mouth. If we can isolate them, that's what we're doing. So if I write them down on a piece of paper and give it to you, that's the measure of verbal content. You know what? We should, before we go any further, we should introduce your ladies here.
Oh, these are our chickens.
The chickens. Right.
I don't know if any of them are in the shot right now,
probably not. But there are chickens
but
here.
They might wander through.
And will probably visit at some point.
Yeah. So just so you all know, that's what's happening behind us here.
That's what I was thinking when you were just talking about measuring what someone's taking in. I was just thinking, I'm listening to everything else, but you're like the car over there.
I know.
And the chicken noise. I was like, oh, I hope I'm not quizzed in a second. I don't know
what
what you
just fine. Yeah. Well, so the perceived message isn't going to come from a car. That might be a distraction. It's not going to come from the ladies. It's going to be the words that I speak. So if I wrote it down, that would be verbal content. All right. The perceived message, and this is where these studies are fascinating. The message you're taking in right now is made up. My verbal content makes up 3 to 5% of the perceived message. Great reaction. It's almost nothing.
It makes sense just because like tone, facial expression,
Absolute.
physical, like everything. The amount of times we have conversations about what somebody else said, but what did they mean?
Yes,
you
right,
know?
Right. Or you're going to say what someone else said, and in your ears, you know exactly what they said. They said this, and you say, well, didn't you just say anything like that? Yeah. Verbal content, it's almost nothing.
Yeah.
So that just put that on the back burner, 3 to 5% of the perceived message. And each of the studies reflected that same thing, between 3 and 5%. All right. The second level is tone of voice. Now, tone of voice, same studies, make up between 33 and 35% of the perceived message.
Wow.
I know, right? But for most of us, it's not a surprise once we go through examples. And we'll demonstrate examples. But if I say to you, well, you did that really well,
Uh-huh.
Very few people would hear that as an affirmation.
Yeah.
It's sarcasm.
Mm-hmm.
But my words, if I wrote them down, they say you did that very well. You did not hear me say you did something good. You heard me say you really bombed.
Uh-huh.
But my words, 3 to 5%, but when they disagree, when my verbal says one thing and my tone says another, you will discount my words every time. And that's at 35 to 38%. You know, that we dismiss it.
Yeah.
And now one of the complicating factors is, as I'm talking, I'm not always aware of my tone of voice. If I work on it and I try to be a good communicator, then I am paying attention to what my tone, but I'm never 100% on it. And if I'm excited or if I'm sad or if I'm depressed, that affects my tone of voice. And it will affect what you perceive me saying. But it may very well be that I'm trying to say one thing, I'm out of touch with my tone of voice, you're perceiving something else, and I don't know that you're perceiving something else.
Mm-hmm.
That's where it gets chaotic, is in all these things, we need to develop ways of being able to translate what I intend versus what you're taking in,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we've got the tone of voice, we've got the verbal content. Nonverbal communication is this last category, and there's lots that goes into it. Because we look at my tone and my content, those both come out of my mouth. The last level is anything that doesn't come out of my mouth. Well, so that's eye contact, that's hand gestures, it's posture, it's all kinds of things that I often am not paying attention to as a listener, unless I'm active, but it is affecting my perception strongly. Part of nonverbal communication is also context. So if the last time we talked we had a fight and we didn't settle it, it's going to affect how I perceive you today.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if she's still mad at me. I have not gotten over what she said last time. Those kind of things that are context. That's part of that nonverbal. Nonverbal, 55 to 58% of the perceived message comes from context. And so those three together make it very, very complex. Because I could be saying something emphatically, I can't believe it. That could be very intimidating. But I could be talking about something that happened last week, someone else, and you have this emotional reaction to it. We'll talk a little bit later about the components of family of origin when we talk about family conflict, etc.
Yeah.
But right now, it's just those three levels. Now, I can be saying something right now, and you guys could be digesting it, and at this point, I have no way of knowing that you are completely misunderstanding me. And so we have to have some way where we can work in a feedback loop so I can know if I'm coming across, and you can know that that's really what I intended to say.
Yeah.
So I tell you what, I'm going to ask you guys to talk to each other about what you just heard me say. It's summarizing a
We are
lot.
going to have a quiz.
Were you listening?
I don't know. For the most part. But there were some distractions.
Or we're just going to talk about what you talked about?
Yeah,
Yeah.
what do you hear me? So I can know if I'm communicating well. I want to hear what you guys took in
So
and see if it's what I
3%.
intended.
See, I was listening.
Verbal context.
Yeah. And then the 30% is tone. And then the rest of it is just
Nonverbal
nonverbal stuff.
communication.
Which I don't think worked. Because while he was saying that, I was trying to give some nonverbal signals to our guest.
Yeah.
And he
Didn't
clearly went the
compute.
other way.
Yeah.
It did not work. I don't know what I said to him.
Yeah.
I don't
I
think it was
thought
what
I saw a
intended.
thumb
Yeah.
go up, but if he saw another finger go up, he
Yeah,
might
he
be
was
mad
like,
right
"Ooh."
now. Yeah, right.
Yeah, that didn't work.
No.
So I don't know what percent he got, but he missed that whole 70% of all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's super interesting. I would have thought the verbal context was at least a little more than that.
Yeah.
But I guess when you explained it that way of, like, if you say something with a certain tone, then it means the opposite of what you actually say.
Right.
Which is,
The problem is, for me, when I'm speaking, I am focusing on my words. That's my highest priority. I want to say this right.
Yeah.
Well, I could be working really hard on that and communicate the opposite of what I'm intending, but I remember my words. I know what I said.
Mm-hmm.
And so if tomorrow you say, well, you scolded me yesterday, I can get real defensive and say, that's just crazy. I didn't scold you. I told you X, Y, Z. These are the exact words. I wrote them down. I know what I said. And now we have this big conflict about the fact that all you should have heard is my verbal content, and we don't work that way. And so, and I see that happening lots and lots within families.
Yeah.
Where they're not talking the same language.
Can I make a side note?
Yes.
Specifically about like literal verbal context versus tone and any other communication that's happening.
Yeah.
Like I've had experiences in the past a few times with a few different people who use that pretty abusively,
right,
and intentionally, of like they're extremely careful about what they say, the words that they say,
right,
so that when you come back and you're like, hey, I know you wanted this from me or whatever, they're like, I never said that.
Yeah, right.
But in reality, no, you communicated that to me, but you could never be held accountable in like the court of law.
Right.
And
right.
that's a problem. That's like a
right.
I don't know what you call it. Is that emotional abuse or?
Well, it depends on the motivation.
Yeah.
If it's done in ignorance, so they really think that that's what they were communicating, then we'd say, oh, well, that's poor social skills. It's poor personal insight. But abusive, I don't know. If their purpose was to what we call gaslighting, put it on you, then we'd say, oh, now we're in that, at least in the vicinity of abuse. I want you to feel bad, and I want to be able to make you feel crazy tomorrow, you know. And then we'd say, okay, yeah, that's abusive. Okay. Now, how do I measure which is which? You know, if I have a history with you and you do this all the time, then I'm going to lean in the direction that is purposeful, especially if I've pointed out to you sometime and you keep doing it. Then I say, okay, this is looking a little more intentional. My tendency would be to automatically go to the intentional and villainize you when you may just be really poor at, you know, your own self-awareness. Okay, yeah. So, yeah, but that's exactly what we're talking about. If I take that in as abuse and purposeful and it's not, now we're heading off into could be very, very damaging to a relationship unnecessarily. Yeah. So that's where we got to come up with something. There aren't lots of options. There aren't lots of options of how do we sort out what I took in, is that what you intended? Matter of fact, there's only one, and I've been looking for other options for 45 years. There's got to be another way. Sorry, I haven't come up with anything. It's inherent in our human communication, this misunderstanding. And this is what it looks like. I'm talking and you're listening. Before you respond, we need a way that you will first reflect back to me what you heard me say, and I have a chance to validate that, that's what I intended, or correct it. Oh no, that's not what I meant. I meant this, and say it a different way. Now that's really tedious, and in this little vignette, it's not particularly threatening, but in the midst of a conflict, it can be very, very difficult. Yeah. But that's essentially what it looks like. Now, if you and I are talking, I can initiate that. Let's say I'm talking. I need to not talk for long periods of time because it can be hard for you to keep track of it, you know. There have been several times in our podcast where I have said, oh, can you tell me what you heard me say? I said a lot, which means you're not going to do it word for word. Give me a general overview so I can say, oh yeah, that's what I was trying to get across, or no, it isn't. That's what it is. So, but that's one point, you know, when we're intentionally talking. I can initiate by saying, tell me what you heard me say. And I always suggest, if we're going to do that, your next phrase is, tell me what you heard me say so I know if I'm communicating well. That's in hopes that you don't hear this as critical or blame. Tell me what you heard me say because I don't think you're listening. Now that's a whole nother context. But if I take the responsibility for needing to know if I'm communicating well, now I lift that off potentially of whatever your response is. Or if you're talking and I'm going to we'll call it mirroring, that's the term I use, there's a lot of words for it. If I'm going to mirror, I can say, wait, hang on for a second, let me tell you what I heard you say to make sure I'm on track with you. Again, it's my responsibility, and I'm not saying you're talking crazy, how can I track with you? I'm saying I want to make sure that I'm listening to you. That's me saying you are the most important thing in this moment, not me. And so let me tell you what I heard you say, and then I reflect back. Now, that's all ways of trying to keep the tension down in this nonverbal area, you know.
Yeah.
So tell me what you guys are hearing me say as we move.
What'd you hear him say?
I'm watching the chicken go in the house. Look at her. I'm like, and there's another one that I thought was going to jump over the fence.
This is
So our next session is going to
context.
be on ADD.
There's a chicken in our house.
She's just going for the nuts. She's not going to go all the way in.
That's
She's just going
great.
for the almonds.
Yeah, yeah.
Can you summarize for me? Give me the rundown.
I'm surprised because you're usually really good at that. Of,
because
like, half listening, but then like
yeah.
like
No, I don't think
in
I'm good at it.
retrospect, you hear everything.
No, I don't do that.
You do that
no,
really well.
I don't.
Yeah.
We've had this discussion. It's like, the only way I can describe it is it feels like she'll say something and it just goes, and then somehow, like at the last second, I catch the very last echo of it, and it's really faint. And I can repeat it back, but I have to repeat it back in order to understand it. Like I don't. All the words are like way back there, and then somehow I grab it and I'm like, I'll repeat it exactly how you said to me, and I'm like, then you're like, and I'm like, but like as I'm repeating it back, I'm like hearing it for the first time or something.
Yeah.
That
really
is
weird.
Yeah, when I'll be like, did you hear what I said? And he'll be like, it'll just a pause, like, you said, and then he'll say it exactly how I said it. So
Yeah,
I'm like,
right.
oh, okay, great, you did hear me.
Yeah.
But you really just heard me.
Yeah. And I might not have heard you had you not asked.
Don't we call that, right or wrong, multitasking? Because you were watching the chicken and thinking about that, but you got it, you know, or whatever. You were distracted, but you could retract it enough. It was logged in your gray matter at least for 10 seconds where you could spit it out.
I'm scared to like say what I thought he said because I feel like you're just gonna be like.
No, but here's an important feature that's helpful for me. One of the features is me, let's say if I'm marrying you, me being correct has nothing to do with it. Nothing. As a matter of fact, it's preferable for me to be incorrect.
That just makes it easy, like if the honing happens.
Right. And it corrects my misunderstanding. If I'm right every time, now there could be very little deepening for us. But if I say, I heard you say such and such, and you say, oh, that's not what I intended. Best of all worlds. That's what we want. Okay, could you say it again? Now I'm hearing it twice, and I have these two different perspectives. But I'm corrected, so I'm going to go with the second perspective. But so when you say I'm afraid to, I'm afraid to say it.
Yeah.
I'm thinking I am hearing you say, oh, I hate to fail. And what I was trying to do just there is let's relieve that.
Like
There
winners.
is no failure here. With mirroring, there is no fail. The only failure is I storm up and leave without talking.
Mhm.
That's failure because we're not going no place.
Yeah.
But if I say, here's what I heard you say, and you say, oh, no, that's not what I meant. Here's what I meant. Perfect. As long as I don't be offended. And that's where you got to get over the, oh, I don't want to be wrong. A couple of times you'll be over that.
Well,
'Cause, yeah.
I remember. So you were saying, like, basically what you say and like having someone repeat it back to you so you could like hear if they actually heard what you said or your intentions with it.
Right.
But you said that's very hard to do when you're in a conflict.
Yeah.
And what I was thinking about too is that's true. It's very hard to stay calm and I guess level-headed when you're in the middle of a conflict. But then if 70% of communication isn't even that, like, is that why people get frustrated if the other person is actually calm and collected? They're like, why aren't you talking to me with emotion or expression or
be.
something like that?
Well, because the not talking to me with emotion is in that context. Is where I'm judging you should be as angry as I am. And if you're not listening to me. That's all interpretation of that nonverbal. So that's where, if that's happening and you're calm and I'm excited, I can say, potentially, if I can find the way to do it, to say, tell me what you heard me say. I'm thinking you're not listening.
Yeah.
Now we can talk about, you'll tell me, okay, no, this is what I heard you say. Okay, then I have a chance to say, well, you missed this, or whatever. Or it might very well be that you did pick up primarily. Now we can talk about me interpreting your silence as though you don't care. That's an important part of this conversation. But it doesn't come up until I misinterpret you, we reflect, and now we can talk about what's happening inside of me that you're interpreting as abandonment or disregard or passivity or something.
Yeah.
I want you to know I am really upset about what you're saying, but I don't want to change the topic, so I'm working real hard at not reacting. And so that may come across to you as I don't care. I just want you to know it's not that I don't care at all. As a matter of fact, I care a lot. I just don't want to yell or something like that. You know?
Yeah. As we talked about, it's probably a side trail we don't need to go down. We're just talking about different, I guess, stereotypes around people and nationalities, and that like with Italians seem to be more
Right.
explosive and stuff, and then or can have bigger reactions to things.
We compare Scandinavians and Mediterraneans a lot
Yeah.
because of
That's
Your
our
different
communication.
ethnic backgrounds. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm probably a lot more emotional and volatile. That might not be the right
I
word.
mean, you can use those words.
Especially when I'm sleep deprived. I'm way more emotional than I need to be. And you're more even keel, which sometimes
even keel to him comes off
sometimes-
as apathy.
Yeah, or indifference, or being cold, or
Yeah.
something like that.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
But we usually get through it when we can explain, when we can just talk back and forth a bunch. Like the other day when I was explaining, like I'm not mad, I'm not upset,
Yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah.
Like I'm good.
Yeah, I think you've even used the word disconnected in a good way, but to me that would always have a bad connotation because you are being indifferent. Then you're like,
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, this
we
is
just don't need
great.
to talk about it.
So I hear you guys saying you're comparing ethnic backgrounds,
Uh-huh.
and I'm hearing you both say we, by nature, by history, we translate things differently. And so I think I was hearing you say, Jason, when you are self-managed, you're not explosive, and I am, it feels like you don't care. I interpret that as disinterest naturally.
Yeah.
And then we have to correct that because she's saying that's not what that is.
Yeah.
Is that fair to
And
say?
ours is probably pretty mild, and we do talk through it about it. But it makes me think of other people that probably have a similar problem, where like you could have one person that gets upset because they're not getting a reaction out of the other person, because the
Right.
other person is kind of more treating it more level.
Right.
Yeah.
And so they are hearing something from the context
Mm-hmm.
that is negative and insulting and
Mhm.
painful.
Yeah.
But it isn't necessarily accurate.
Mhm.
And that's why we need a process. Otherwise, you could be offended and say, I've had enough of this, and storm out because of what you feel, because of the context. That's what we're talking about in these levels, is just knowing that. Because while the verbal content is only 3 to 5%, it is the primary tool for clarification. It is essential. We're not going to clarify non-verbally, and we're not going to clarify through our tone of voice. It's because I say something, you believe me, you reflect back, so I am accepting that 3 to 5% as the definition of truth, even though my perceived message is so influenced by these other things. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
That's why it's a tool.
Yeah.
That mirroring is an essential tool. And one of the things when we're working on it, it's number one, it's really annoying.
Mhm.
Number two, it takes a long time to get used to that kind of reflection. It is tedious. It feels patronizing.
Yeah.
And often in my office when I'm working with couples, I give them permission to blame me for it all. What did Roger say we need to do? Wait a minute, I'm in a mirror just because we're going to have to answer for this next session, that kind of thing. So I'm happy to be the scapegoat there of we're doing this thing that's really annoying, but we're doing it with a purpose. It's learning, well, compared to learning an instrument, when you're learning an instrument, it sounds bad, your fingers hurt, you're just playing the scales and you can't play them, so it's really annoying. But you will never play in Carnegie Hall if you don't learn the scales. And there will be a time where the scales are so natural you don't even think about them anymore. But that's a long time now.
Yeah.
First, you'd be annoyed by hitting the wrong notes all the time. Very similar to this skill. It's annoying. You're going to do it poorly. You're going to be frustrated. You want to give up. But if ever there's going to be this free-flowing conversation that is emotionally laden and not explosive, we'd say that's because of the skill that's being implemented that eventually needs to be the equivalent of muscle memory. We just do it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's one point of chaos. We'll take that. We're going to put that on the shelf. We'll come back to it later. That's a matter of practice. Yeah, one point of chaos. Why it's very complex. That's a biggie because it's true anytime we're talking. It's always going to be true. And there's only one way to clarify it unless we're going to try to read minds or guess. So that's over here. Now, we have spent a lot of time on our broadcasts on family of origin, our family history, and our inner child, and how these are so interwoven in us. That's also a part of communication. I'll talk about it specifically in the area of conflict. So when we're in conflict, that's when we are least capable of communicating well. We are most reactive. What we are feeling is tending to dominate what's going on. And that is where we are most liable to misinterpret what's being said. Because I do have a filter that complicates things beyond these three levels. And that is anything that goes in me goes through this grid of my history and my past and my translation of those words and what I'm feeling right now, and if I got a cup of coffee this morning or I didn't sleep well last night, all of that affects how I also perceive what you're saying right now, all right? Yeah. And if we just, to some degree, just isolate family of origin, all right? Well, as we've said many times, we tend to repeat familiar patterns because they're familiar, not because they work. And how conflict was handled in the family that I grew up in is familiar to me. And unless I've done a lot of work and been in therapy and, I tend not to be aware of that. It's an unwritten family rule thing that this is the way it works. We tend to be attracted to people who let us play out familiar roles. That's part of courtship. Is that, the one that I'm attracted to, it feels so much at home. I just feel like this is, here's a phrase for you. This is a little off track, but when we are dating, let's say we put it on the guy. The guy is saying this romantic thing to his girlfriend, I feel like I've always known you. I feel like you're a part of me. It's so familiar. It's warm, it's romantic. They write country music about that stuff, all right? It's really nice to hear. Once they're married, he says the same thing, but he uses different words. He says, "You're just like my mother." It's the same thing. It is, you are familiar, feel like I've already known you. What I know about you is this is familiar to me. And I may not like it, but that's where we're at. And so here's a classic couple, all right? Comes to my office. And we'll call the guy Steve and the woman Mary. I've got these two. And they come in and they have this pattern of conflict, that they're trying to break. And they've been married, I don't know, 10 years, 15 years or whatever. And they're coming to change a system, their family mobile. They want to change this. And here's what the system looks like. One of them will confront something. I don't like this. I want you to change this. Something that triggers defensiveness, all right? So let's say Mary goes to Steve and says, it really bothers me when you don't hang up the towel in the bathroom and it's on the floor every time I come in. It really bothers me. I want you to stop that, all right? Now, for Steve, that hurts his feelings and he doesn't want to fail his wife or he's heard this so many times it's just making him crazy, but he has this emotional reaction and what he does is shut down. I'm not going there because this isn't going to end well. She's going to get more mad. I'm getting mad. I don't want to do this. And so he shuts down and then she pursues it. Don't walk out on me. We're going to deal with this. We need to talk about this. Yeah. And he shuts down even more or says something distracting or whatever, and she escalates, and it eventually blows up where he says things and she says things, and they come out with lots of regrets, and hopefully there's somewhere apologies or something, but nothing changes. All right, so now they're in my office and they're talking about this, and maybe I've had a chance to watch it between them or something, and so I'm going to summarize for them. All right, now by the time we're in our fourth session, we have gone through family of origin. I've gotten to know them a little bit in terms of histories, not everything, but so I got this picture. And so I said, well, here's what I'm watching. When Steve is being criticized and confronted, he does not feel loved. He doesn't feel loved. He doesn't feel respected. All the things that he wanted so badly in his marriage and to have his wife pleased and satisfied with him, that's not happening. So he has this emotional reaction inside. When Mary sees that thing on the floor for the third, fifth, 12th time, she does not feel loved. She doesn't feel cared for. She feels dismissed and validated. So that's the background noise to this conflict. In the world that Mary grew up in, how you had conflict had a lot to do with how you loved. And in her family, what she learned from the time she was little, no one had to say it, no one had to talk about it. This is just the way it works. When you love someone, you confront things ASAP. You don't let things simmer. You don't let those coals burn. You deal with it as soon as you can because you love them, because they are so important to you. You don't want this lingering. She knows that. She has always lived that way. Her world was always that way. She's never even questioned it. That is what you do. Because when you don't love someone, you don't care enough. I'm out. It makes no difference to me.
Yeah.
That is a measure of her love.
Mm-hmm.
The world that Steve grew up in, when you love someone, you protect them from painful feelings. You are careful. You don't say things that are going to hurt their feelings. You don't say things that are going to upset them. If you don't care about someone, you tell them whatever you want. They don't matter to you, you know. Now, when we look at these two worlds that now are coming to bear in this relationship, and we're going to be the judge, who's right and who's wrong? It's going to be very hard to make this a moral issue. What we can say is this is not working for them. They do not speak the same language. So when Mary is trying to love Steve as best she can, Steve knows what that means. She doesn't care. She hates him. That's what's happening. And she hates him, and I can tell because look at how she talks to me. That kind of thing. And when he shuts down, bless his heart, as you know, he wants to yell and scream, but he's not going to yell and scream because he loves her. She knows what that means. It means he doesn't care. He is indifferent to her.
Mm-hmm.
Both are wrong. Both are communicating something that to them is second nature. And their relationship is deteriorating in the midst of that. That comes back to one, like you and I have talked about, Becca, the understanding that subconscious, those histories, how does that play in? Not because they're right or wrong, but because they are conveying something that is not effective for me in my marriage, you know,
Yeah.
or in my work or in my parenting or whatever. These things, we're talking about specifically to a marriage, but they can be generalized. They're all over the place, except marriage is where our highest priority tends to be. We tend to be most reactive, most easily hurt. We misunderstand most when we are emotionally invested, and that's why the marriage thing is the good thing. So for these two people, it would be very helpful for them to be able to get to a place where they have talked about and realized these two different contexts that they bring into the relationship, because that's the 55 to 58% of the perceived message has to do with context, and I'm misreading your context. I'm putting my context on you and translating what you're saying by the world I grew up in. We all do it. We don't not do it. We have to learn to not do it.
Right.
Otherwise, it's what we do naturally. But that goes back to that 58%. So your tone of voice could be fine, and your words are nice and clear, but I know what this means. You're about to divorce me. That kind of thing, you know. And all these things escalate because, number one, we're not paying attention to the fact that I'm paying attention on one level and I'm missing something else, and that my history is bogging down my interpretation. Now we go back to that mirroring. How many ways are there to clarify this? Only one. Here's what I hear you saying. I hear you saying that I am a disgusting human being that you can hardly be around. That would be great to be wrong. You don't want her to say,
That's
true.
what I meant.
Yeah, right. Or you don't even want her to say, well, just for this minute. You know, in a few minutes I'll feel better. You know, that's probably a little better in that direction, you know. Far better to say, what are you talking about? You know, I don't understand where that came from. And then you can read in the tone of voice. Well, that sounds very severe. You sound very disgusted with me when I ask, you know. But anyway, that's the clarification. Clarification comes from those specific words, getting clarification, so that I can see what those, my interpretation of context and nonverbals comes from. Yeah.
I have a question. If somebody grows up in a household where mom and dad never got on the same page with their communication, so
Right.
mom has been communicating like Mary's family,
Yes, right.
and dad has been
Just like Steve. Yeah.
yeah. Like Mary and Steve never figured it out, and
Right.
all their kids grew up.
Right.
Are those kids gonna grow up with kind of like we go back and forth between these two communication styles? Do they like kind of veer towards one or the other?
They will tend to identify with one.
Okay.
They would tend to be, you know.
They'll be like, this feels better.
Right.
It feels better to communicate, or it feels better to not hurt people's feelings.
Right. Or
you're not gonna.
This is what mom did, so that's what I'm doing.
I see.
Mom did it right.
Okay.
Dad did it wrong. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
And you might find a split among siblings that, oh, one goes this way, one goes that way.
Yeah, okay.
Whatever it is, the principle is what's familiar to me.
Mm-hmm.
And if I always felt bad for dad because mom was always yelling at him,
Mm-hmm.
I may tend to go that direction with dad, and then always feel like a victim, you know, again from that. Or dad never paid attention to mom, and so she always had to yell. I may very well go the direction of mom because of my perception, who I'm identifying with,
Mm-hmm.
you know, could be associated with my birth order and when I came on and what their conflict was like when I was growing up versus my big brother or little sister, those kind of things.
Yeah.
But so I think, I know. So that wow was good. Tell me what you just heard me say. I hear you saying, Raj, I am overwhelmed right now.
There's
I
just
could be
so
wrong.
much in the background, like you're talking about, that affects everything.
Yeah,
There's no way to know.
Yeah.
It's too much.
right.
Well,
Plus,
Maybe-
this chicken is digging just like a
How-
big hole.
a question for you between
Yeah.
you and I, because when he first started talking, I started thinking, oh, I'm kind of like Mary and you're kind of like Steve. But as he kept explaining the situation, I kind of thought, well, I think we might both kind of be like Mary, and maybe that's why we work we work through communication the way that we do. But I feel like sometimes there are times when you're like, you focus more on preserving feelings than I do. Sometimes.
What do you mean?
Like when we're talking about communicating boundaries with other people, I focus more on we gotta talk directly. We have to talk directly, and you focus more on but we don't want to hurt their feelings, and we have to. We kind of, and I think it's probably a good balance for both of us to have different focuses in that, because now I'm not leading us into a bitch fest, and you're not leading us into never setting boundaries. Like we have we have a balance of like, let's say it directly but with love.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like as we dig through, like how do we communicate well with people? We figure it out eventually. But I don't think you come from a place of, well, we just don't talk about things.
No, I don't think so.
So what do
Not
you hear
really.
her saying? How do you summarize what she just said? She said it quite a bit, but it was all online.
No, I don't want the test.
This is the test. There's no way to fail this. There's no failing, and whatever is about to come out of you is all good.
I have to sit here for a second. No, you were saying that okay, I'm gonna repeat it back to you. Just the exact same
I
word you
got
said.
you,
Yeah. I'll get it.
Yeah.
Go on that way. When he first started talking, you thought that we were both Mary, or you were Mary and I was who? Steve.
Steve at the beginning. Yeah.
But then you thought it might have flipped or something.
We're both.
But then it sounded like by the end that I was still Steve and you were still Mary, because you wanted to talk directly, and I still have a way of wanting to not be as direct and try to preserve people's feelings and emotions.
But so this is great. Before you go too quickly.
Okay.
Yeah. I got the picture that part of what he was saying was accurate. He was just reflecting what he heard you say, not was your data correct, is what I heard.
Mm-hmm.
And I got the impression watching you that part of it was and part of it wasn't.
No.
If I'm right, this is the feedback he needs to have, and you need to be able to give. Okay, that's kind of what I was trying to say. Let me fill in more. That kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, not just wrong. No, that was mostly right. But just that I think we both lean more towards the Mary side of things because you're not avoidant of communication when like if I bring something up or if you bring something up because you bring things up too, you know, like I think we both lean more to the side of Mary's family of like you talk about things.
Yeah.
And I think we both probably carry the Steve side of things, but
but maybe for different reasons.
Yeah, for different reasons. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think you're more gracious in your communication. Like you think, well, I mean, I do think about people's feelings. I just don't care as much as you.
Yeah. No, that's fair.
Yeah.
So that's what I was
Yeah,
trying to
because
say.
if we have a conflict, you could just not talk to me all day and be fine with it.
No.
I feel like it.
No way.
Like the other day, and then I'm like sitting there like brooding. I'm like, I gotta talk about this before I go to the gym.
So this is great, but I gotta put the brakes on here.
This is
Wait, Dad.
The other day,
Wait.
when you were reading his book, and then you made that comment because I didn't have an opinion on the studio room, and then you were like, I just read about this in my dad's book, and so I'm thinking like, oh great, now she's like psychoanalyzing me all day and thinking all the way.
Issue. That's why I went along with my day, not thinking there was any issue, and he thought there was like a big issue
and
that we
I
had
had
to talk
like work
about.
stacked up on top of it, and I was like going on like 4 hours of sleep. So I'm like trying to remember in my head, okay, you're sleep deprived. Don't cry. Don't cry. And then I cried.
So this is perfect. You guys in this moment are doing my job for me. This is perfect. Nobody's mirroring. There's passion, and it's rapid fire, and neither of you knows for certain that you are hearing what the other person intends. Like you say, this is what makes it hard.
We talked it out more in the moment. We ended up doing that, and it wasn't easy. It was one of those the conflict is there, and it was not fun. Yeah, for a while.
I don't think we mirrored at all. We just went back. We did clarify a lot.
We did mirror some because there was I remember there was a point when you pointed out that I was saying you do this, you do that, and then that's when I remember him saying something else about like, gee, that's not a good way to communicate. Of saying you, and so then I was like, I don't know. I just wanted to shut down, but I didn't because like if I do that, then I want to talk about it. Like I said, I can't go to the gym when it's all like still festering there.
Yeah.
Like I can't just shut it down for the moment and deal with it later. It's like I need to deal with this so I can go on with life.
Yeah.
So in that way, I guess I'm married.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we'd give you a good grade for what I just watched. All right, but a great example.
That's all I care about.
I know. Well, since we already talked about marrying,
as long as I'm winning.
You're always winning.
Yeah.
Because we talked about mirroring already, you get like a B, maybe leaning in the direction of a B plus. But it won't always work as smoothly as it just did. And that's where, what do we do when there is this stalemate? So, Becca, you were describing, here's what we did, you know, you do this, I do this. And the term that came to my mind as you're saying that is collaboration. So we maybe naturally, given however we got to this place in life, we can collaborate well with each other, which is great. That's good. That doesn't mean we understand each other well. It means we have grace and we can, you know, take things in and not have to escalate or whatever. But it won't always work that way. Kind of like when I tried to stop you there. Perfect. Because
what did I do?
She said, "No, Dad." That's it. We call that
not
passion.
Not yet.
Because that's where it tends to go sideways. When we have passion and we value the topic, and I need to be heard. That's what we all do. But I can't make myself be heard. I can get louder, I can get more intense, I can talk faster. None of that helps me be heard. I cannot accomplish that in any way. That's the other person's job to hear me, and I can't do that. What I can do is the best I can to hear you. What if it's not reciprocated? that's abandonment and betrayal. That's a whole nother ballgame. But if I say, because my goal is to be heard, tell me what you heard me say before we go any further. I don't want to react to what I was, I don't want to go any further until I know that we're on the same page. But like you said, and this is what we do inside, even if we do it on the outside, no, I'm talking. I'm in the midst of my message. Absolutely. And so what's the guy, Dr.
Dr. Phil.
Dr. Phil.
Yeah.
How's that working for you? Are you heard any more when you're loud than when you're quiet? How's that work?
Oh no.
But that's the point is, that's why I think, oh, you guys, that was perfect. You did my job for me. But that's why the mirroring thing is so difficult, because our passions are involved. And so I usually tell couples, the outcome, the goal is to be able to do it in conflict. But that's the hardest time to do it. Far better to begin practicing it as a skill in day-to-day, just trivial conversation. But then it's going to be couched in humor because it's so awkward. Mm-hmm. And you're only doing it because you read it in a book. I always say, this mirroring thing, call it reflective listening, call it active listening. There's different terms for it. You get a marriage enrichment book, first part of chapter 2, mirroring. It's there. Okay. Except we read past that because we're looking for how do you resolve conflict?
Yeah. Just fix this.
Just get her done. Yeah. But that's where to do it when we are just gabbing, and you can do it because we're doing that thing in the book or the thing that our counselor told us to do. Mm-hmm. So we do it with a snicker, we do it with a sneer, but we do it. And we're just practicing that so that eventually we can have these passionate conversations and be able to pace them with, tell me what you heard me say. Let me tell you what I'm hearing you say. It sounds like you're saying X, Y, Z. Wow, you really seem to be feeling such and such. And when you say, no, that's not correct, I say, thank you. Thank you, correct me, because I don't want to misunderstand you. The response when someone says that's not what I was trying to say, your job is to say, thank you, I appreciate that. Tell me again. Mm-hmm. So that it is collaborative. It's not adversarial, but it takes a while to get there. Mm-hmm. And what I just watched, that's what it takes to get there. That's square one. I got something to say, and I'm going to say it. Okay?
At least we're getting good grades.
Yeah, right. You got a good grade. Pass the course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're winning square one.
There you go. All right. Well, so I'm thinking we've covered a lot here. The two of you together, talking to each other, summarize what we have been through in the last, whatever, it's been half hour, 45 minutes or something. Summarize for each other.
Communication is a lot more than just verbal content. What you say is not always what you mean. And the only way to fix it is through constant verbal clarification, mirroring, like very intentional, very awkward, repeating verbal mirroring, and just honing it down until it's figured out. That's what I heard.
Would you add anything to that?
No,
Jason?
that's it. Yeah. That's it. Sorry.
And
I have a lot of stuff in the background that's being filtered. Like as she was talking, I was thinking about Trump impersonations that were made earlier today. Like, I know the best words. I know all the words. And so I'm like repeating words back to each other. A lot's going on right now. Yeah.
That's great. That's great.
So, but that was all good.
Yeah.
So
one of the things I'm taking away from this conversation, which was delightful, I loved the escalation. That was all great. Is in these styles that you guys are describing, it sounds like the two of you might be far more congenial than you feel at the time. I don't want to say that you're coming from the same place necessarily, but it does sound like the hurdles that a lot of us go through in early marriage, they sound like they are not, at least at this point, particularly severe. Not that you don't have conflict or anything like that. The goal is not to not have conflict. That's not a healthy relationship.
Yeah.
It's that the majority of our conflicts are resolved the majority of the time, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
And that's kind of what I was hearing and watching from the two of you is, oh, no, we have successes that we can lean on. And now, as a result of this, we have this other tool that's on the table that is not going to be functional unless we practice. But at least we have the concept. Is that fair to say?
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
so.
that's fair.
Yeah.
And it gets better as time goes on. It's
Yeah.
never, I don't think it's ever fun in the moment.
Yeah.
It's usually pretty excruciating when there's conflict.
Yeah.
Like having to do any of that, any sort of mirroring or any conversation. It's not fun.
Any conversation.
No, I mean like conversation with conflict though. It's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
fun. It's not
No.
fun to be in the middle of it.
Yeah.
But it's always better on the other side. But it has gotten better.
I
when
mean,
we first started dating, I think it
yeah.
was really rough.
I was gonna say from like the road trip that we took to Colorado
Like
versus
Mercury.
now,
Yeah, it's a lot
we're
better.
like superheroes.
Yeah.
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 We couldn't communicate worth a dime that trip.
No.
We learned a lot though.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
learned a lot by the failure of
Yep.
the communication. Yeah.
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 Uh-huh.
I
And
mean, we
by,
still did
Anxiety is our
communicate.
best friend.
and I think we mirrored a lot on that trip actually.
Yeah, we
Because
did.
there was so much miscommunication that it was like, what do you think I'm saying?
Yeah.
And
yeah,
it
there
was
a
like
lot.
back and forth for, basically 2 weeks over that trip.
Yeah.
It was just like so much unintentional
Right.
but necessary mirroring.
Yeah.
And that's probably what helped.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that got us through that trip.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So there was some groundwork that had been done before the trip. The fact that you would stop and say, "What do you think I'm saying?" says, okay, there is some kind of inclination that your reaction isn't matching my intent, or some kind of read there
I
that
think
you
so.
putting on the table.
Yeah.
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 That's great.
Yeah. We've come a long way already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's probably good for this session.
Okay.
We covered a lot of territory. This has been absolutely delightful for me. Just
That's
watching
great.
this and
I'm glad for you, Dad.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
glad
yeah.
That was so
Dad had a
delightful
good
for
day
you.
today.
Well, then I guess I don't know where we'll pick it up next time, but we'll pick it up next time and see you there.
See you then.
Sponsored by. I mean, I want
Ghost.
sponsorship, but
Well,
well,
no, you want to get sponsored for the OG. What did they call it?
pina
You
colada,
want
but they're
the
little
pina colada.
cans. They need to make a
Yeah,
big
But
can.
you still gotta try it.
Yeah, but we can get sponsored by the other, any energy drink. We're open.
That's great. Oh, that was fun.
That was fun.
That was a lot of fun. Yeah.